You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. To start, let's recap the fundamentals of governance roles and committees before moving into scaling considerations. In earlier discussions, we explored RACI models, responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, as a way to clarify who owns decisions and tasks. We also covered committees such as security steering groups, risk councils, and policy boards as vehicles for oversight. These basics work well in smaller organizations, where a handful of committees and clear RACI charts provide sufficient governance. But as enterprises grow, governance must scale. Larger organizations often span multiple geographies, business units, and regulatory environments. This complexity requires more nuanced governance models, ensuring consistency without becoming a bottleneck. For learners, think of a small town versus a major city. A town can operate with a mayor and a few council members, while a city needs multiple departments, zoning boards, and agencies. Security governance must scale in the same way, adapting its structure to organizational size and complexity. One scaling approach is the federated governance model, where central standards provide alignment, but business units retain some autonomy to adapt controls to their contexts. Under this model, the corporate security function defines high-level policies. For example, requiring encryption for sensitive data, while business units decide which encryption methods best fit their systems and workflows. Federated models work well in multinational organizations or conglomerates, where central oversight must coexist with local autonomy. They balance the need for enterprise-wide consistency with the reality that different units face unique risks and regulatory requirements. For learners, think of a university system. The chancellor sets overarching rules, but each campus tailors them to fit local needs. Federated governance provides cohesion without smothering agility. By contrast, centralized governance models consolidate most decisions under a single authority, typically the corporate security or risk function. This approach works best in organizations where standardization reduces risk or operational friction, such as highly regulated industries like banking or healthcare. Centralization ensures uniform compliance, reduces duplication, and allows for consistent measurement of effectiveness. However, it can sometimes slow decision-making, especially in fast-moving business units. For learners, imagine a military organization. Orders flow from the top, ensuring unity of command and strict compliance. Centralized governance delivers control and consistency, but must balance efficiency with responsiveness to avoid becoming overly rigid. Hybrid governance approaches combine central policy with delegated local controls, blending the strengths of federated and centralized models. For instance, the corporate office might issue a mandatory incident response policy, but allow each business unit to design procedures tailored to local systems and teams. Hybrid models are often the most practical, ensuring enterprise alignment while enabling speed and contextual fit. They also allow for risk-based delegation, where higher-risk activities are tightly controlled centrally and lower-risk activities are delegated. For learners, think of a franchise restaurant chain. The franchisor defines brand standards, but local managers adapt staffing or menu specials to their market. Hybrid governance lets organizations remain consistent yet adaptable. Shared services, such as cloud platforms or enterprise identity systems, introduce special governance considerations. Since these services support the entire organization, governance must ensure central policies are clear, operational responsibilities are delegated, and joint key performance indicators, KPIs, are established. For example, central IT may run identity systems, but governance must define who is responsible for provisioning accounts, who approves privileged access, and how metrics like time to deprovision accounts after termination are tracked. Without this structure, shared services risk falling through the cracks. For learners, think of an apartment building's utilities. The landlord provides central water and electricity, but tenants must follow usage rules and report problems. Shared services require coordinated governance to ensure fairness and accountability across all users. Aligning security roles with existing enterprise functions is another key part of scaled governance. Security teams should not reinvent risk management, compliance, or audit structures, but align with them. Risk functions handle enterprise risk registers. Compliance teams manage regulatory mapping. Internal audit provides assurance. Governance ensures that security integrates smoothly into these existing frameworks rather than duplicating them. For learners, this is like building a new lane on an existing highway. Instead of creating a separate road, you add capacity while keeping traffic aligned. Aligning security roles with established enterprise functions reduces friction and creates a seamless governance ecosystem. Metrics are the lifeblood of governance reviews. Teams should regularly evaluate risk heat maps showing where the highest exposures lie, control coverage indicating how many critical systems are protected, and remediation SLAs measuring how quickly vulnerabilities or findings are resolved. These metrics ensure governance is evidence-based, not anecdotal. They allow steering committees to prioritize investments, hold owners accountable, and demonstrate progress. For learners, think of a fitness program. You don't just trust that exercise is working. You measure heart rate, body weight, or endurance. Metrics in governance function the same way, providing quantifiable evidence of effectiveness and areas for improvement. Governance also plays a pivotal role in strategic business decisions. When organizations consider cloud adoption, mergers and acquisitions, or entering heavily regulated markets, governance must ensure that risk implications are evaluated and security controls embedded. For example, in M&A, governance defines how due diligence includes cyber assessments. In regulated markets, governance ensures controls meet legal obligations before business begins. Without governance, strategic moves risk exposing organizations to unseen vulnerabilities. For learners, think of construction. Before building a bridge, engineers must assess soil stability and material strength. Governance brings that same foresight to business strategy, embedding security into decision-making at the highest levels. Policy exceptions are inevitable, but governance must ensure they are controlled and auditable. A business unit may request to use an older system that does not meet patching standards due to operational needs. Governance structures should define how such requests are submitted, who reviews them, how compensating controls are applied, and when exceptions expire. Documentation ensures transparency and prevents shadow exceptions that erode policy authority. For learners, think of speed limit exceptions for emergency vehicles. They are permitted but regulated, with logs, training, and accountability. Security governance must treat exceptions with the same discipline, ensuring they are the exception, not the norm. Training and onboarding expectations for governance participants ensure that members of committees and councils can make informed decisions. Participants may not all be technical experts, but they must understand governance principles, risk trade-offs, and key terminology. Orientation programs, glossaries, and briefings provide this foundation. Without training, committees risk confusion, slow decisions, or poor oversight. For learners, think of a jury in a trial. Jurors may not be legal experts, but they are provided instructions and context to fulfill their role responsibly. Governance training ensures participants have the knowledge needed to engage effectively in oversight. Governance also supports budget prioritization and risk-based investments. Committees evaluate competing requests, such as funding for new monitoring tools versus expanded awareness training, and decide based on risk reduction and alignment with strategy. This process ensures resources are directed where they deliver the greatest impact, rather than being allocated to the loudest voices. For learners, think of family budgeting. You weigh choices between home repairs, vacations, or education, making decisions based on risk and priorities. Governance plays the same role, channeling limited funds into investments that best protect the organization. A practical exercise for learners is to create a short decision matrix showing which governance bodies handle different security decisions. For example, Policy changes may be owned by the Policy Council, exceptions reviewed by the Risk Committee, vendor onboarding approved by procurement with governance oversight, and high-risk acceptances escalated to the board. This exercise clarifies how decision rights are distributed across levels, reducing ambiguity. For learners, think of an organizational chart showing who approves what in a company. Decision matrices bring the same clarity to governance, ensuring everyone knows where specific issues are addressed. Third-party risk is one of the areas where governance must define clear ownership. Vendor acceptance decisions cannot be left to procurement or IT alone. They require governance oversight. Typically, procurement manages commercial terms, IT validates technical integration, and governance bodies approve based on evidence of security posture. Required evidence may include society reports, ISO certifications, penetration test results, or completed questionnaires. Governance ensures that no vendor handling sensitive data or providing critical services is onboarded without documented due diligence. For learners, think of this like admitting a new tenant to an apartment building. Management doesn't just check credit scores, they review references, background checks, and agreements. Vendor governance requires the same thorough vetting, with committees ensuring third-party risks are assessed and accepted consciously. Tracking regulatory changes is another critical governance responsibility. Laws and frameworks evolve quickly, and organizations must assign responsibility for ensuring policies remain aligned. Governance structures typically charge compliance teams with monitoring changes, legal with interpreting obligations, and policy councils with updating documents. Without assigned roles, regulatory drift occurs, leaving organizations exposed. Governance bodies make sure there is no ambiguity. When GDPR, HIPAA, or financial regulations shift, the updates flow into security policies and practices promptly. For learners, think of this like schools adjusting curricula when education standards change. Someone must monitor, interpret, and update lesson plans. Governance plays the same role, ensuring security policies evolve alongside external requirements. Escalation processes must exist for systemic findings from audits or repeated incidents. When issues recur, for example, multiple audits revealing poor patching discipline, governance must elevate the problem from operations to executive attention. Escalation ensures chronic weaknesses are treated as strategic risks rather than routine issues. Governance defines when repeated failures trigger broader action, such as funding new tools, adjusting roles, or revising policies. For learners, imagine a recurring plumbing leak in a building. If maintenance fixes symptoms each time but the root cause persists, the problem escalates to property management for long-term resolution. Governance escalation processes work the same way, ensuring systemic issues receive executive focus and sustainable fixes. Measuring governance effectiveness requires structured assessments. Periodic maturity assessments benchmark governance processes against frameworks like NIST CSF or ISO. External benchmarking compares performance with peers, revealing whether the program is leading or lagging. These assessments identify strengths and gaps, providing roadmaps for improvement. Without measurement, governance risks being symbolic rather than impactful. For learners, think of academic grading. Students may feel they are progressing, but grades and standardized tests reveal true standing. Governance assessments provide the same accountability, proving whether structures deliver measurable value. Embedding governance outputs into performance reviews and KPIs strengthens accountability. For example, if policy compliance rates are low in a business unit, governance ensures that leaders' performance evaluations reflect this weakness. Similarly, if risk remediation SLAs are repeatedly missed, managers are held accountable through governance-linked KPIs. This integration prevents governance from being seen as extra paperwork and embeds it into daily leadership responsibilities. For learners, think of safety protocols in construction. If a foreman ignores safety rules, it directly impacts their job performance. Governance must create the same linkage. Compliance and oversight are part of the scorecard, not optional side activities, Governance also has a critical role in crisis response. Emergency committees may be pre-authorized to make rapid decisions, bypassing normal approval flows when incidents demand immediate action. After crises, governance bodies review the response, documenting lessons learned and adjusting policies. This dual role, supporting crisis agility and ensuring accountability afterward, demonstrates governance maturity. For learners, think of how cities handle natural disasters. Emergency powers allow rapid action, but afterward councils review decisions and adjust future plans. Governance in security plays the same dual function: agility during crises, reflection afterward. Effective stakeholder communication is another governance hallmark. Information must be tailored to the audience. Board decks summarize risk posture and funding needs. Executive summaries highlight trends and investments. Operational dashboards track KPIs and incidents for managers. Governance ensures that reporting is consistent, aligned with decision-making needs, and avoids overwhelming leaders with irrelevant detail. For learners, think of news outlets. A front-page headline differs from a detailed policy report, even though both cover the same event. Governance communication must apply the same principle, tailoring format and detail to each audience, while maintaining consistency of message. Archiving governance artifacts preserves accountability and historical context. Meeting minutes, decision logs, policy versions, and audit findings should all be retained according to defined schedules. Archival ensures auditors can verify that governance bodies reviewed policies, approved exceptions, and documented rationale. It also supports institutional memory, allowing future leaders to understand how decisions evolved. For learners, this is like keeping old blueprints when renovating a building. They show why walls were placed where they are and help guide safe changes. Governance archives serve the same role, providing continuity and defensibility across leadership transitions. Cadence is key to governance rhythm. Policy reviews may occur annually, risk registers refreshed quarterly, and control testing conducted on monthly or biannual cycles. Governance committees must set and enforce these schedules, ensuring no critical area is overlooked. Cadence provides predictability and discipline, turning governance into a repeatable process rather than an ad hoc reaction. For learners, think of athletic training. Workouts are structured daily, weekly, and monthly to build performance. Governance cadence applies the same structured scheduling to ensure oversight remains consistent and comprehensive. Pilot approvals for new security technologies also fall under governance oversight. Committees should review proposed pilots, ensure measurable success criteria are defined, and approve them based on alignment with business risk. For example, piloting a new zero-trust tool must include KPIs for adoption, risk reduction, and integration feasibility. Governance oversight prevents wasted investments or poorly aligned technology rollouts. For learners, think of test driving cars before purchase. A pilot validates performance before committing resources. Governance ensures technology pilots are disciplined experiments, not random trials. Governance is also responsible for institutionalizing lessons learned. After incidents or audit findings, governance committees track whether recommendations were implemented and whether preventative investments are made. For instance, if an incident revealed weak monitoring, governance ensures funding is directed to new detection tools and that policies are updated accordingly. This process prevents the same mistakes from repeating. For learners, think of reviewing exam errors. Teachers not only grade, but also adjust lessons to prevent recurring misunderstandings. Governance must adopt the same improvement cycle, turning every lesson into lasting policy and investment changes. Ultimately, governance scales by clarifying decision rights, embedding evidence flows, and linking policy oversight to measurable outcomes and funding. Clear delegation ensures decisions are made at the right level. Evidence flows, metrics, audits, exceptions keep governance informed and defensible. Linking governance to funding ensures that oversight translates into tangible risk reduction rather than abstract discussion. For learners, the final takeaway is clear. Governance is not simply a series of meetings. It is a living system of structured decision-making, evidence, and accountability that scales with organizational growth. When practiced well, it becomes the engine that aligns security policy, risk appetite, and investments with business priorities. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.